Hey YouTube, it's Mike. All right, so today I want to share with you some interesting things that I've recently discovered from the psychological perspective about what you know and what I know as gaslighting. Gaslighting comes from a play from, I don't know when it was, the 1930s or something like that, where a woman is conned out of her, if I remember correctly. I actually did this play when I was in college, so it's amazing I can't remember it. But it's about a woman who is conned out of her life savings or something like that by somebody who keeps messing with her, trying to get her to believe that she's crazy so that he can, I believe, so that he can take over her money. And so it takes place during the time when people had gas lights. So anyway, gaslighting. Gaslighting means to, you've been there when your borderline accuses you of something you didn't do in such a way where you feel like you're going crazy. Now, a lot of people use the word gaslighting just to mean you're being accused of something you didn't do. But it's not gaslighting until you start to believe it. When you start to doubt your own sanity, like I remember doing and saying that, but you're saying this, and now I think maybe you're right, but this is cognitive dissonance, where your body's telling you one thing, but your brain is telling you something else. You know something's bad, but you do it anyway. You do something completely against, a big chunk of your own better instincts. So we call this gaslighting, but apparently there's words for these things in the realm of psychology, and looking at it, I found them to be very revealing. So before we go any further into this, of course, let me just give my little disclaimer about this channel. This channel is designed to help those people who have been in relationships with people who have cluster B personality disorders, specifically borderline and or NPD. And my job is to help you heal from that relationship and to guide you into the things that I've done, which have given me not only complete healing of that relationship, but ways that you can continue to heal and grow in other areas of your life. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a mental health professional, I'm not an expert in any of this, I'm not a borderline. So whenever I start talking about borderlines think this and borderlines think that, that is me either sharing what has been told to me by recovering borderlines, what is the accepted understanding in the mainstream psychological fields of science. And it is my own, oftentimes my own intuition and observation, which I'm pretty good at, but it's okay with me if I don't get everything 100%. What I am most interested in is giving the information to those of you who are in these relationships or have been in those relationships, and you're still trapped, either mentally, emotionally, even if you're not in the relationship. The pain is still running your life. You're still wrapped up in rumination, which is another word for obsession. You still go back and forth between feeling guilty and feeling rageful. The feeling of emptiness inside. You know what happens. You've been there. Once you get into a relationship with somebody who has an untreated, cluster B personality disorder, you know what happens to you. It breaks you on a certain level, and you never really get over it. Unless, in my experience, you do the 4 things that I teach you to do, which I talk about up here, which we will talk about. But it is important to understand that, once you get bitten You become infected, and that infection takes over and still continues to do its job even after the relationship is over. Even if you've been out of the relationship for sometimes decades, the damage that's been done continues to happen. And so what I want to do is point out what your role in this is. And so we're going to talk about this today. We talk about gaslighting. When I say so-and-so is trying to gaslight me, your initial response is to see the person being gaslighted as the victim, the helpless victim. But the truth is that gaslighting does not work if you don't participate in it. If you don't participate in it, and if you don't have at the very least an unconscious emotional agenda to make the relationship work, meaning you're willing to sacrifice your boundaries and your health and your happiness in order to follow the promise of the love that you're hoping you're going to get from your borderline or NPD. If you don't have that, gaslighting doesn't work because it's ridiculous. When you look at the things that people say when they gaslight you on the surface, it's nonsense. So the only reason that you can begin to believe it is because you have a stake in it. There's something that you want to get out of it. And if you're not willing to look at your side of it, then there's a good chance that you may not ever heal from the relationship. So you have to take full responsibility. All right, so let me take a look at those things. And again, I'm just giving you the best, my understanding as I am learning about it. So first let's talk about introjection. Well, actually, first let's talk about projection. So projection is when, and by the way, there's healthy projection and unhealthy projection. So these things that we're talking about are things that happen in every relationship, and they're good when they happen, the way they're meant to happen. These are things that we have developed in our psyches as a result of the human mind creating a powerful and healthy psyche, so that it helps us to survive, it helps us to live. So there's nothing at all wrong with projection in and of itself. When you watch a movie and whatever it is, you feel emotionally for one of the characters in the movie, like, this happens to me a lot. I'm watching and somebody will lose a loved one, somebody will die, and you see the character go through all the pain of having lost a loved one. And I find myself sometimes verbally out loud saying to the screen, oh yeah, that's horrible. I know exactly what that feels like. And that's my projection. I'm projecting my own feelings because I lost a loved one. I'm projecting my own feelings onto a fictional character. So those feelings are very real, but that character doesn't really exist in reality. I'm projecting onto it. So when you have compassion for somebody, it's a projection. So there's nothing wrong with projection in and of itself. We can project positive or negative. When we're projecting negatively, it means that we have feelings within us that we can't tolerate or we're unwilling to accept, either out of shame or out of pain or something else. And so something will stimulate a feeling within us. And if we're not willing to or able to see that it's our feeling, we will see it in other people. People who walk around saying that nobody can be trusted, that's a projection. If you're angry and you're not willing to look at your anger and somebody walks in the room, I've used this example before. Let's say a woman walks in the room and she's wearing the same earrings that your mom wore when she beat you with that wooden spoon. You're going to have an immediate reaction to seeing those earrings, but it's too painful for you to remember that. So instead of remembering that, the feeling of anger comes up and you start to project it onto that person, and you walk in and go, she's really angry, I can just tell. She's a really angry person. And that's just simply you projecting onto somebody else feelings that you have either consciously or unconsciously. And that's, like I said, we do that both positively and negatively. It's all projection. When your borderline is love bombing you, they are projecting onto you. And it happens in every relationship. In order for people to fall in love, there has to be that honeymoon period. And during that honeymoon period, that's exactly what's happening. Good relationships or bad relationships, it doesn't matter. This is how we're wired. We're wired to project onto other people. That's why people say, "Oh my God, she finishes my sentences for me. Oh my God, she's just like me. She gets me. Nobody else gets me. Only this person can get me." Borderlines say this. They will say, "I think that you're the only person that truly understands me." When they make you their favorite person. It's pure projection. They're seeing themselves in you, and they are projecting onto you the love that they want. We all do it. When we fall in love with somebody, we just met them, and we project onto them that they're loving, they're kind, they truly see us for who we are. They're my soulmate. I've known them for thousands of years. It's because you're seeing yourself in them, and you're projecting onto them the love that you want to receive. And then what happens in all relationships, but even in healthy relationships, the first 6 to 9 months is pure projection. Then what happens around between 6 and 9 months, the projection starts to fade, and you start to see that person for who they are. Maybe you project negatively onto them. But the fantasy projection starts to fall apart, and then you have to regroup and you have to learn to love them, not because you're projecting yourself onto them and your narcissistic, love of yourself, but you start to then see them for who they are, and then you have to decide whether or not you love them. This is why when you date somebody right around 6 to 9 months, that's when most people either break up or they have some kind of fallout where then they come back together and they make compromises, and then they decide to get married, because that's when the projection is replaced by actual love, ideally. So there's nothing wrong with these things. We're built to have them. What happens in dysfunctional relationships is that instead of connecting with people on our strengths, we are connecting with people from our wounds. So I'm sorry to say, again, there's just every single week I get some comment from somebody saying, "I disagree with you that everybody who's in a relationship with a borderline is codependent. I'm not codependent," and then they'll go on and say why they're not codependent. What I find kind of hypocritical is they don't have a problem with, "Oh yeah, other people, everybody else is codependent. Yeah, they're stupid idiots, but not me. I'm not codependent." But that's, codependence it means that you're in a transactional love relationship. It means that your worth and your value is based not on who you are, but on what you do for somebody. And if you're not doing what they want you to do, if you're not fulfilling their needs, if you're not objectified, they're objectifying you. If in their objectification you don't meet, what they want from you, then you have no value to them. People talk about objectifying women based on their bodies. Yeah, if a guy is just looking for sex, women do this too, by the way. If a guy's just looking for sex, he looks at a woman based on her body, and he objectifies her, and he wants her body just for sex. And if she doesn't give it to him, then he doesn't want to date her. Right? You're not going to sleep with me on the first date. I have no use for you. So that is if she decided to put her values for herself aside, assuming that she didn't want that right away, and she put her boundaries aside just to get his love, acceptance, and approval, or his attention, then that would be codependent of her. So it's not possible for you to be in a relationship with a borderline, especially if they've split on you. It is not possible for you to be in a relationship with a borderline without being objectified, without being turned into a transactional relationship. In other words, you're there to meet their needs, and if you don't do that, you don't have any value to them. That's why they call it, you're either being idealized or devalued. It means you have no value to them. Now, this happens all the time, but we're talking about in cluster B personality relationships. This is, expounded, 10,000 times, and we're dealing with negativity. So these are normal things. They're just they've taken a turn, and you're turning the volume way up on it. All right, so projection. We all know that. Borderlines project onto you. One of the first things that I read when I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on, I was in this relationship, I was getting torn to pieces, and I was, one day I was the best thing in the world, and literally the next thing I was the worst thing that's ever happened to the human race. And I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on, and I felt like I was going crazy, and I started researching, thinking she might have some kind of mental illness that I'm not aware of, and started looking into borderline personality disorder, and it just ticked all the boxes. And I saw something on some website, which I still remember, which just really hit home, and that person said, remember, when you're with a borderline, they never truly see you. They see a fuzzy outline of a human being onto which they project all of their internal issues. So this is love bombing. When they love you, they're projecting onto you their own narcissistic self-love. They're treating you the way they unconsciously want to be treated, which is like an infant. Have you ever noticed that? So what is it about infants? Infants can't give any love. They can only receive love. And in fact, you have to. You completely, totally dote on the infant. The infant is valuable simply because they exist. Every emotion that they have is rewarded. They're rewarded when they're happy. They're rewarded when they're cranky. No matter what it is, they have an emotion. You give them attention. You give them unconditional attention. You have, this of course is a healthy, mother-infant relationship. The mother loves unconditionally and is continuously giving nothing but love and affection. Attention, love, and affection. And approval. An infant can't do anything wrong. They start being disciplined, when they get to be 2, 3, 4, but an infant can't do anything wrong. And if you look back, your love bombing, that's what the borderline is doing to you. That's what I remember. Love, unrestrained, unconditional love, attention, sex, physical attention, continuous compliments. Everything you do, you can do no wrong. If you look back on it, the reason why it felt for you it felt like amazing. For you it feels like the ultimate, that this is what I deserve. Finally somebody sees me for who I am. It's hearkening back to your infancy and your childhood when you didn't have any of those things. So you're finally getting what you didn't get, and so to you it feels like what you deserve and what you're supposed to have, and this is how it's supposed to be, this is the way it is. And that's only because you're coming from your infantile need, unresolved need for love and attention. But people who got this, people who got that infantile love and attention, that unconditional love and acceptance and idealization, if they got that in a healthy way, then as an adult, when an adult treats them like that, they feel infantilized and they don't like it. So again, those of you who want to tell me, no, I'm not codependent, she was really good to me and she loved me, and everybody falls in love with somebody who treats them well. No, that's not true. Healthy people fall in love with people for other more profound reasons, not just because somebody was treating you well. That's not good enough for them. And if you're being infantilized, you're being treated like an infant, which is what happens when they love bomb you, Somebody who is not codependent is going to go, something's not right about this. This doesn't feel good. You don't know me well enough to love me this much. And so that'll turn them off. But the other thing is that never happens because borderlines are not attracted to people who have healthy psyches. They're not. They're attracted to people to whom they relate, which are the codependents. Codependence, borderline is a form of codependency as well. And so they relate to that. So anyway, I just want to point that out, that the projection isn't just negative. Projection is positive. And in the case of the borderline, even the positive projection is devaluing. It devalues you because you're not being seen for who you are. You're not being accepted because of who you are and what you do for them, like, your honest behavior. You can do no wrong. And, a healthy person is going to go, I feel like I'm getting set up. I feel like I'm getting set up for something, because you are. You're getting set up to get taken down. You can't get taken down until you're put on a pedestal. So, the unconscious agenda of the borderline's mental illness, the agenda of their mental illness is to chop you down. So they have to raise you up first before they can chop you down. All right, so that's projection. Let's see, what else did I say? Projection and introjection. All right, so now you understand from personal experience what projection is. You've been on the other side of that. Hopefully now by watching my channel, you've seen how you've done it, how you project, and you can see how that's your narcissism. Again, there's nothing wrong with narcissism. Narcissism can be healthy or unhealthy. If you don't have healthy narcissism, you can't function. Watching a movie and seeing somebody lose their loved one and tearing up and saying to the screen like I do, oh my God, that's the most horrible thing, I'm so sorry for you. That is a healthy form of narcissism. You're taking your experience and projecting it on somebody, and it gives you the ability to have healthy, loving compassion for somebody, because you say, I know what that feels like. So there's nothing wrong with narcissism. There's nothing wrong with any of these things if they happen in loving, healthy situations. All right, so introjection. Introjection happens with infants when the mother continuously gives love to the child. The child then is introjected, starts to take within themselves. So to project is to project outwards, project. Introject, to take it into you. So if the mother is continuously showing love and acceptance, accepting, like playing with all their little fingers and their toes, and look at your little fingers and look at your little toes. It's a way for the baby to look at their fingers and their toes and to like them, to like their own body, to like, all the things that make them unique. Those things that make them unique, even if technically speaking, it might not be that's kind of a weakness, but the mother sees it as that's what makes the child unique and special, and therefore the most special, beautiful child in the world. So you introject that and you learn to love yourself, and so the child learns to love themselves. And when they have negative feelings, when the baby is crying or when the baby is rageful, the mother picks up the baby and hugs the baby no matter what. If you're a 2-year-old and you stomp into your mommy isn't giving you a cookie, and you say, I hate you, mommy, and the mommy says, I know, come here, give me a hug, I still love you even though you hate me. The child introjects that it's okay to have negative feelings. I'm still valuable. I still have value. I still have worth. I still deserve to live, even though I'm full of rage right now. What happens in unhealthy relationships or unhealthy, when the child walks in and says, Mommy, I hate you, mommy slaps him across the face and says, don't you ever talk to me like that ever again. I'm your mother. They're shamed out of that. So every time they have a negative Borderlines and codependents listen hard because you have to have this, otherwise you wouldn't be one. Every time you have a negative feeling, you feel shameful about it, so you stuff it down. You pretend it's not there. You tell yourself a good person isn't angry. And so you shame yourself. You take that rage and you turn it inward. And you shame yourself out of your negative feelings. That's an introjection. That's, you've been taught, you've been programmed that your negative feelings are shameful. You know, the one thing that I tell borderlines, you know, on the channel is that, you know, we don't care, meaning your partners, we don't care that you have BPD. You think BPD is enough to stigmatize us out of the relationship? It's not. We don't care. If we love you, we don't care that you have a mental illness, or, I mean, it doesn't matter to us. And if you were able to verbalize your negative feelings without projecting them onto us, if you were to come and say, I'm full of rage right now, we would say, that's okay, I still love you. We wouldn't shame you out of your feelings. The stigma, as it were, isn't because you have a mental illness. The stigma is because you act out really destructively. And instead of having the ability to go to your partner with trust and to say, I'm full of anger right now, I'm full of rage at you, and I don't want to be mean to you. Instead of doing that, you then project. You actually see us as how you see yourself. You take your internal self-hatred, you project it onto us, and then you take all of the rage that you want to, you know, put on yourself, and you put it on us instead. You're very hurtful to us when you split like that. That's the only problem. Seriously, it's just about behavior. So I want to share something that my psychologist said, and I had to mull this over, but I think I finally get what he was saying. He says, borderline personality disorder is a series of behaviors. He says that's all it is. It's a habit. They have a bunch of behaviors and they have a bunch of habits that they have this impulse to do these certain behaviors. And if they had the ability to resist those impulses and do something different, we would no longer be talking about it as borderline personality disorder. The disorder is the behaviors. And this is where, you know, both codependents and borderlines share something in common, which is both borderlines and codependents, both, what they want more than anything is to be accepted for their feelings. We see this in the current issues with the election issues in the United States. The people who want Trump to win, when you listen to them, they will talk about their feelings. They won't talk about the actual reality. They'll talk about their feelings. They say, I feel like something was wrong. I feel something, you know, they might find some, you know, some half-baked conspiracy theories and might spout them as proof. But when you talk to them, they'll say, I feel like something is wrong. I feel this, I feel that. Even Trump himself will say, I was winning, and then all of a sudden I wasn't winning. So it must be false. He only cares about his feelings. His feelings become external reality, which is infantile. That's what infants do. He's a narcissist, so he's regressed back in his infancy. So borderlines and codependents both, what they want more than anything is somebody to see their feelings and accept them for their feelings only. We got two sides of the same coin. The borderline projects their feelings, and the codependent introjects the borderline's projections. So now we get to projective identification. So this is, when I started researching this, it really filled in a lot of blanks for me in my childhood. But it also explained why I was willing to keep going back and keep getting my heart torn to pieces by the borderline. It's a process called projective identification. And it's something that can only happen, and this is really, the true meaning of gaslighting, projective identification. This is something that can only happen if you volunteer, if you go along with it. And you won't go along with it unless you have a desire to get the borderline to love you, and you're willing to negotiate your boundaries and your reality in order for the promise of getting the love that they're always promising to give you, which they never really fulfill on. And so projective identification is what happens. So projective identification is when somebody has a projection. So the borderline, as you know, at some point they are going to see you as the most evil person that's ever lived. And they will, whatever it is, they'll want to accuse you of abandoning them. They might accuse you of hating them. They might accuse you of feeling violent towards them. They might accuse you of whatever it is. They might accuse you of these things. These are that's their internal reality that they feel about themselves. By the way, my experience is that borderlines want you to do one of two things, or both things, at different times. They want you to be the codependent victim whom they can get codependent supply from. And if they can, they will try to train you into becoming a narcissist because they want to be abused. Their internal experiences, what they remember, how they identify love is abuse, because they were abused as kids or as infants, or they were neglected, a lack of intimacy. So they like being with narcissists. This is why borderlines lots of times will get into kinky sex. Narcissists are good at that because kinky sex is a way for them to be abusive, and all of that. And so borderlines get physical attention, sexual attention, and they get the abuse as well. There's no intimacy there. Sometimes they'll be tied up or beaten or, called horrible names, and they like that because that reminds them of what they got from their parents, which they equate with love. It also keeps them from splitting because there's no intimacy there. Intimacy, as we know, we've talked about in other videos, is what causes them to split on you. The thing they want the most is the thing that brings back the initial rejection that they felt as infants, which then stimulates this homicidal rage. It's a defense mechanism. And so they're trying to, when they start to feel love for you, they then immediately go to the pain of being rejected. And so they try and beat you to the punch. They reject you before you reject them. And the type of rejection that they give to you is the type of rejection that they think you're going to give them. So when my borderline said to me, even when she was splitting, the conscious splitting, where I get the phone call the next day saying, I had a bad dream about you and I don't know what it is, but I can't trust you. You're not safe. I can't be with you. Click. That was what she thought I was going to tell her. That was her projection of, because it always happened right after either that beautiful night of lovemaking or the night on the phone where we talked and got really deep and close and I was the best person that ever lived. Hang up the phone. Next morning, I don't trust you. I had a bad dream. I feel really scared. I see nothing but darkness. I can't trust you. I can't be with you. That means that she thought that that's what I was going to say about her, because if she loves somebody in her mind, they must reject her. So you get an idea of what the borderline thinks. Whatever they're saying about you is what they think about themselves. Unconsciously, of course. It's pure projection. Projective identification. So when the borderline projects onto you that you hate them and that you're going to abandon them, They project that onto you. They keep projecting it onto you. And then you start to feel those things. You know, when like somebody wants to pick a fight with you, somebody walks in the room and says, I know you want to pick a fight with me. Come on, let's go. And you're like, dude, I don't even know you. Why would I want to fight with you? And then they'll push you. Come on, let's go. You fucking loser. You wimp. You faggot. You boom. And they keep pushing you. You're going to get pissed. You're now going to want to pick a fight with them. And so then you could actually fight with them. Boom. You give them a nice, right cross and, give them a black eye. Then all of a sudden, the only thing that they're aware of, the only thing they remember is that you punched them in the eye. Look at you, you're such a angry, violent person. You just punched me in the eye. And then you go, yeah, but you hit me 3 times before I punched you back. No, I didn't. I just walked in the room. I just walked in the room and I said good morning and you punched me. Now, people do this. I'm using an extreme example. I was never physically violent with. I haven't been in a fist fight since I was in junior high school. So, but just want to be clear about that. My ex-wife, who is not my borderline ex, but she had borderline tendencies. My ex-wife would pick fights with me, and she would be really abusive with me, towards me, sometimes for 20 minutes. And, as I was getting towards the end of those 20 minutes, I would start to say to her, listen, I need you to stop yelling at me. I'm starting to get angry. And I don't want to get angry with you, but I'm starting to get really mad at you. And she would push and push until I finally lost it, and I'd punch the pillow or throw the pillow across the room or, scream. And then there would be this look on her face, and she would get this shocked look on her face, and she would get like she was going catatonic. And then she would say, I can't talk to you when you're like this. And she'd go in the bedroom and slam the door. And then, of course, I'm like, no, get out here. We're going to talk about this right now. You brought it on. And then the next thing I know, we're in therapy. And she's talking about how angry and abusive I am, saying that, I don't know, I came home from work. And the next thing I know, he's yelling and screaming and throwing pillows across the room. I watch and I'm like, and I remember going, you don't remember what happened. You don't remember the 30 minutes leading up to that, do you? So that's we could call that provocation, but that is the beginnings of projective identification. Something like that could continue, and then somebody could get the idea that, yeah, I really am angry. I need to go to anger management, when really they don't. So the borderline wants to project onto you something, and if you need that relationship to work, you will eventually start to believe it. You will start to introject that, and then you will start to then either act that way, even without them. At some point you'll be so well trained that they'll do just one thing, or do or say something that will trigger you to take on that characteristic in order to justify their projection onto you. This happened in my childhood. My role in my household was, I had an older brother. He was 5 years older than me. Is 5 years older than me, and he was very abusive, and he had decided, anyway, he used to abuse me all the time. And at some point, whenever there was something that went wrong, my brother did something wrong, something went wrong in the household, somebody had to be the scapegoat. It had to be somebody's fault. And so that would always fall onto me. My brother would blame me. And then, my parents would then blame me, and then it would be my fault. And I started getting this feeling, without even realizing it, that, something was wrong, it must be my fault. I must have done something. Even just not that long ago, my mother had passed away, a couple of years ago. But I remember the last time that I went to go visit my mother, and of course my NPD brother was living with her. And I went there, and my mom started talking about, her finances, and she was sort of hinting that she wanted me to take over her finances. Now, my brother didn't like that. He overheard that. And now looking back on it, I think she did it just to trigger him. And he walked in and he started abusing me. He started calling me names and blaming me for all kinds of stuff. And, that led to me doing the thing I do. Hey, you better calm down. I'm starting to get mad. I'm the last person you want to piss off. I'm not a little kid anymore. You need to back down. And then that escalated into me yelling in his face, "You motherfucker, I hate you," right? And then, of course, and I found myself weeping because he was accusing me of causing his illness. He had this physical illness, and somehow it was my fault, even though I hadn't seen him for 10 years. And I was weeping over that because it was like, that was a horrible thing to accuse somebody of doing. And I went home. I went to go visit. I went back to the hotel. I said, "Okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving." And I said goodbye to my mom, and I got in the car and went back to the hotel. And then the next week or something, I was talking to my mom on the phone, and she said that I had provoked him. And that was when I decided I wasn't going to have any more contact with my mother or my brother. Because I just saw that that's how my whole childhood had been. That was an introjection, and that I felt that part of me go, yeah, I must have done that. I must have done something to deserve him to abuse me and to accuse me of all that stuff. And that's because, as the youngest in my family, the survival instinct is to be accepted by your tribe. This goes all the way back to caveman times. If you're not accepted by your tribe, you're going to die. You'll be left out. You need the tribe to survive, or you won't survive. You will die. And so in order to survive, projective identification is a way to be accepted. If you get the message that in order to be accepted by this tribe, you have to be the troublemaker. You have to be the scapegoat. You have to be the leader. You have to be the whatever it is. Whatever it is that if you get the feeling the tribe has decided you need to be this way in order for us to function, because the feeling is that the tribe won't survive if you don't do your job. The hunter doesn't do his job. The protector doesn't do their job. The caregivers don't do their job. In the tribe doesn't survive. So this is a survival instinct. So when the borderline, first off, you're attracted to the borderline because it stimulates your need to get your survival needs. It's not love. So let's be clear. If you've gotten involved with a borderline, it's not love that you were looking for. You thought it was love. You've sexualized it or you've turned it into love in your mind. You've equated it with love, but it's not love. What you want is to be accepted by your mother. Your mom didn't give you what you needed as an infant or as a little kid, either through neglect or outright abuse, or a combination of the two. And that leaves this gaping hole inside of you that only the borderline can see. The borderline can see it. They go, that's why they target you. I mean, you've seen it. Borderline women especially, are very unfeminine in that if they decide they want you, they go after you. It happens to me on this channel. I mean, I get people emailing me and telling me, hey, we need to talk. Here's my email. Borderlines. Because they can see the codependence in me. And I'm making this channel about how, damaging borderline personality disorder is, and they want to prove to me that, this happens too. I can prove it to you. One person said, I can prove it to you. What you're saying isn't true. I can prove it to you. Here's my email. So they see it in you. They see that need. Otherwise, they wouldn't be attracted to you. If you're healthy, they have no interest in you. They only have interest in you because they relate to you. You have that wound of unresolved lack of love, and then they go chasing after that. So in order to keep the relationship going with the borderline, you have to be gaslit. So that feeling that you have of, I think I'm going crazy, I feel like, they're telling me one thing, which I think sort of makes sense, but there's a part of me that doesn't understand, and yeah, I deserve the abuse, but and you feel like you're just being torn apart. It's because there's a part of you that's saying, listen, we have to introject this, we have to take on these characteristics, and we have to believe what they're telling us, because if we don't, they'll die. And it's our job to keep them alive, and then they'll love us. You don't know that that's what's going on, but that's what it is. It's the normal, healthy relationship evolution that we've got hardwired into us, that under normal circumstances creates loving, healthy bonds. Because when you introject that you're a good person, that you're worthy of love, that you're successful, that, this is what people are trying to do with positive affirmations, which, by the way, don't work. Positive affirmations don't work. You can sit on the edge of your bed and say, I have $1 million, I'm successful, people love me. You can do that 24 hours a day. It's not going to work if your unconscious projective identification, your unconscious training, your unconscious programming, if your unconscious programming is opposite of that, it will literally veto that positive affirmation the moment it's been said. The moment that you say, I'm going to be happy and loving, your unconscious mind will veto that and replace it with the opposite. And so what you consciously think means almost nothing. It's what happens on the unconscious level. All right, so I think I explained that. Let me just, once again, projective identification is when you take on the attributes that somebody's trying to project onto you, because, in the case of the borderline wants to feel victimized. So if they can turn you into the victimizer, then they won't feel crazy anymore. They're trying to validate their very real feelings of being persecuted and abandoned. Those feelings are very real. Those things really did happen. But they're trying to repeat it, and we all do it. They're trying to repeat it so that they can resolve it and get past it. And so you are now a character in their play, literally, because they're narcissistic. So you don't truly exist. They project onto you. And they're going to cast you in the role of the abuser, the abandoner, the, whatever it is. Because even if you go to a borderline after they've abused you, like if you leave a borderline, if they've abused you horrifically, and you come back and you say, listen, I can't do this. This is just too painful for me. I love you and you're treating me horribly. What's their first response going to be? You're abandoning me. You're killing me. When all they've done is that they've provoked you into doing the very thing that they don't want, and they're doing it so that they can relive it and justify it to themselves that, yes, indeed, I am a victim. Everybody hates me. They're all out to get me, right? But you can't play that part unless you volunteer. And that happens because you want to be loved. And let's be clear, the love that you want is not the borderline. The love that you want is your mother's love. And until you can really internalize that, you're always going to think that the borderline is, that you're really damaged because of their lack of love. So those of you that the relationship is over, it's been over for years, and you're still ruminating, it means that the reason why is it that you're still ruminating over somebody that broke up with you a year ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago? Why are you still ruminating? You've had other people that you've broken up with or who've broken up with you. You don't ruminate about them, but you ruminate about the borderline. Because it's not the borderline's love that you want. The borderline symbolizes your mother. And so you're ruminating because you're still desperately bear in mind that in the unconscious mind, the part of your mind you're not aware of. There is no time. So you're now in your 30s, and it's been, 25 years, or whatever. It's been 10 years since you left home, 15 years since you left home. You're in your 40s. It's been 20 years since you left your parents' house. Your unconscious mind is still at that place of wounding. So if you were neglected, abused, shamed at anywhere from age 0 to whatever it is, especially between the ages of 1 and 3, if you were damaged in any way, your unconscious mind is still there. It hasn't moved on from that. The unconscious mind does not know from time. But you consciously know, well, I don't live with my parents anymore. It's not about them. Oh, I just met this amazing person. I'm in love with them. And then they hurt you. And then you ruminate over them. They are just a symbol. What you're really ruminating about is that your mother didn't love you the way you needed. So that's what rumination is about. It's not about the person you think it's about. But again, if you want to heal, I've got a foolproof method. One is you have to go completely no contact, which means you must block them on phone, Facebook, every email, every way that they could contact you. You block them. You make it impossible for them to contact you. If that means throwing your phone away and getting a new phone, then you do that. If that means moving from your house so they don't know where you live, you do that. If that means calling the cops and getting a restraining order, you do that. That is no contact. Anything less than making it impossible for them to contact you is not no contact, because you're still waiting. It's just you waiting for them to finally get a hold of you. So that's the first one. Second one is you have to work all 12 steps of coda.org or any of the 12-step groups. I could care less which. And then sponsor someone else in 12 steps. If you don't do everything that I just written, then you have not worked the 12 steps. Going on to coda.org and looking at the website, reading the literature, that means nothing. Going to a meeting and watching people and then going back home and judging them for how screwed up they are doesn't count. You have to actually find somebody who's worked the 12 steps and say, can you take me through the 12 steps? If you find somebody that says, well, let's take our time, we don't need to work out the steps yet, say, thank you, I want to work the steps. You find somebody who will take you through them. Once you've worked all 12 steps, especially that fourth step, that resentment inventory, once you've done that, then once you've done those 12 steps, then you turn around and you make yourself available to help somebody else. Until you've done that, you have not done number 2. Number 3, get a therapist. Okay, get a therapist and start going to therapy. If I had to pick just one, I would say work the 12 steps. The 12 steps does something to actually reformat the brain. It helps you reset the neurology of your brain, because again, even codependence is a series of habits. It's a series of behaviors, just like borderline personality disorder is a series of behaviors. And if you're able to change your behaviors, regardless of how you feel, you can have whatever impulse you want, but if you change your behavior to something opposite, your neurology will start to shift. And this is where the healing comes in. But the therapist is good because the therapist gives you conscious awareness of what's going on in your unconscious. The therapist is the one that helps you realize, no, you're not in love with the borderline. You're still waiting for mommy's love and approval, and you're playing it out with the borderline. All right, so that's 3. And then actually number 4 is actually step 11, which is daily meditation. Okay? So those are the 4 things you need to do to heal from the relationship. It's not going to take away the underlying issues, although you will now have a clear path on how to continue to heal those. But the relationship itself will be completely healed. All right? So I'm happy to take questions now. And that's what I prefer. I prefer for you to leave me honest questions. So my BPD girlfriend, this is VJ, says, my BPD girlfriend would unsuccessfully gaslight me, and it would result in me becoming angry and an argument would ensue. All right, that's not a question, so I won't try and do anything with that. All right. I get it. So you're the borderline's a horrible person. I get it. That's really not what we're here to do. I'm not really here just to point fingers at the borderlines. Borderlines are human beings who have gone through very, very horrific neglect and abuse, and they're responding out of their survival instinct, which unfortunately is an ineffective strategy, and it's very horrible and painful for them. And yeah, they do all those things that you mentioned, but that's not really what we're here to do in this channel. We're here to help you heal and grow. So what can you do to heal from that relationship? That's what I'm here to help you with. This isn't just we sit around pointing fingers at them. I actually have nothing but compassion for them. And my borderline ex, now that I've healed from it, I don't spend my time doing what you're doing right now, which is pointing fingers about how horrible she was. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that your borderline girlfriend was all those things. I have no doubt about it. But the point is, you signed up for it. You signed up for it and you kept showing up. The details of who said this and who said that and who argued this and who won't do that, those are all meaningless. You kept showing up, and so the reasons why you kept showing up with somebody who was that abusive to you, that's what we're here to try and address. And really the only things that matter are doing those four things, as far as I'm concerned. Just see, question, hi Mike, glad to be here tonight. Do you think therapists are doing a disservice to their clients by not disclosing a diagnosis? Is that really a question? So a question is, you're asking me something that you think I know that you don't know. This isn't really a question. This is your way of giving an opinion, which is, and this is you'll get further with me if you share with me your honest feelings. So that's the two things that I like: people sharing an honest question or an honest feeling. Yes or no, they are or are not doing a disservice by not disclosing a diagnosis. You said, I saw mine for over a year and spoke of ex-BPD, and she never mentioned I might be codependent. Well, first off, a couple of things there. First off, codependence is not something that therapists deal with. It's not part of the DSM. It's, when a psychologist goes to get their degree, they don't learn about codependence. It's talked about, but codependence, as I understand it, is really a result of 12 steps. So back in 1933, as somebody pointed out, Alcoholics Anonymous was created, and the Al-Anon program, which was back then the wives of alcoholics, they started, I believe they started getting the title of codependent. And even though a lot of psychologists talk about codependence, it's not a diagnosis. There's no diagnosis of codependence out there, which is why so many people have a problem with what I'm saying. There are people that have been in, as you're pointing out, have been in therapy for a long time, and their therapist didn't mention your responsibility, your codependence. That's because they just don't know about it. They're not trained in it. It's not accepted, and there's a lot of psychologists that look down on it and badmouth it, and so I'm not going to say they're doing a disservice, because they're probably just doing the best that they know how to do. If you go onto YouTube, you'll see that there's really, there's a lot of channels by psychologists who will talk about borderline personality disorder, and they might mention, offhanded that, and this makes it very hard in romantic relationships because the borderline does this, that, or the other thing. And they don't really get into how horrifically damaging it is and how horrifically damaging codependence is. But So I wouldn't blame the therapist for that. They're not trained to do that. So this is one of the niches I think I'm filling because while I believe that people should be in therapy, um, I think therapy serves a really good function. Um, there's a thing about it that's missing. This is why the 12 steps and therapy together are kind of a, it's a bulletproof method of self-healing. It's really good. So I don't think they're doing a disservice. They just don't know any better. So God Emperor, you're not borderline. So this channel really doesn't apply to you. I'm going to read your question if it's connected to this channel and what we're talking about. But let's be clear. You're not borderline. I mean, this is a guy from one of my other channel. I just want to be clear about that. If you're not contributing to what we're talking about, nothing personal, I may not read your questions. So you say, do you think we will ever get to the point where we can heal disorders anyway? What difference does it make? I don't know why you're asking me that question. What you do have, which is similar to BPD, is you want to see things in black and white terms. What you don't do well is live in the state of half and half. So you're looking for things to be healed right away. That's black and white thinking. So the question of, do you think we will ever get to the point where we can heal disorders such as BPD, autism, etc.? That works against your healing. For you to heal means to be in the space where two things can be going on at the same time. So I'm encouraging you not to ask those kinds of questions because they're black and white. You want it to be over like that. You want to take a pill and have it be over. And what you do have in common with borderlines is that you can't tolerate having uncomfortable feelings. And this is what, quote, healthy people are able to do. They're able to have conflicting feelings and be okay with it. Is there such a thing as an ex-BPD? Lolita Nyan. So are you asking me, is there such a thing as can a BPD be cured? My understanding is no. And I would be very wary of anybody who says that there is such a thing as a cured borderline or a cured narcissist. There is no such thing. This is something that gets broken, and there is oftentimes brain dysfunction or whatever. They get broken. They never get, those wires never connect. So a borderline is never going to stop splitting. Having said that, my understanding is if they spend at least 10 years in therapy working really hard, they can learn how to manage their symptoms, which means their behavior. So there can come a point after they've been in therapy for a really long time that they can learn how to, when they're wanting to split, they can learn how to act differently. They won't be able to change their feelings. They'll still dissociate at times. They'll still do a lot of the same things they've done before. And they still might split. They still might do and say hurtful things. Those impulses will never go away. So the answer to your question is no. The best that you can get is a borderline who has done the work. But let's be clear about something. So if people are looking for, I'm not saying you're saying this, but I know I wanted this, and I know a lot of people do. They think if they can get their borderline into therapy, that then it'll all be okay. The assumption that I had was that if my borderline could just, connect to her pain and have her feelings, then we could connect on this emotional level, and I could be there for her in her pain and love her and take care of her, and then she'd love me and it would be this really great. But what I didn't realize is that that's not how it works. Borderlines are never going to love you the way you want them to. And so what I didn't realize is that my borderline wasn't capable, my borderline ex, was not capable of having the kinds of feelings for me that I wanted. My fantasy is that if she went to therapy, those feelings would come to the surface and then she'd be able to connect and bond. But the thing is that borderline personality disorder is a form of narcissistic personality disorder, which means that they don't truly see you. You know, we could talk about empathy, but empathy, you know, there's empathy and then there's projective empathy. And I think when borderlines say that they have empathy, what they really mean is that they have projective empathy. Same thing with, you know, any cluster B. The empathy that they have is not the kind of empathy that you and I take for empathy, which is when I have empathy for somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have a good feeling for them. Doesn't mean I look at them and I have this positive, squishy feeling coming out and I want to empathize with them. That's projection. That is part of it. Like I said, when I'm watching a movie, somebody loses a loved one, I get teary-eyed and I feel this empathy for them, but that's my projection. It's healthy, it's wonderful, it can be a really good thing, but that's not true empathy. True empathy is you are able to take loving, constructive, compassionate action towards somebody even when you don't have those kinds of feelings. You have the consciousness and awareness that your behavior is what's most important. So when I hear borderlines say that they have empathy, what that means is that they have a bunch of squishy feelings, which may result in them being loving and compassionate in the moment that they have the feelings, but the moment those feelings disappear, so does their empathy, which means it's not true empathy. So I think this is one of the limitations that psychology uses when they talk about borderlines and narcissists. They talk about things like true empathy and functional empathy. I think that's all nonsense. I think that's all, because one of the things I think that psychology does a disservice when it comes to borderlines is they're unconsciously justifying the borderline's behavior by talking about people who aren't sociopathic have empathy. And if you don't have empathy, then you're sociopathic. And so then becomes this judgment about, sociopaths versus empaths. This is why there's this whole thing about being an empath. That whole word came from, on YouTube, all these empath channels are people who are saying, I'm not these narcissists who are sociopaths or psychopaths. Meaning those people don't care about you. They don't have any feelings for you. I have nothing but feelings, but they have no real understanding that just because you have a ton of feelings doesn't mean that you're not narcissistic and abusive. Because, there's one of the things that does happen with borderlines, especially borderlines that are, quote, comorbid, which I think also is kind of a misnomer because borderline is a form of narcissism. It's just a different expression of it. But what you end up having is and this is coming from a comorbid BPD, NPD, and this is what this person says is that the BPD part of them can have empathic feelings, but the narcissistic side can manufacture those feelings in order to actually gain the confidence of their target. So they can feel all of the feelings. They can make themselves cry. They can feel all kinds of pain and empathy, but they're using it as a screen in order to get your confidence, so that then they can use you and abuse you and take from you. So just because you have a feeling doesn't mean anything. So I'm saying this to both borderlines and codependents. Codependents wear as a badge of honor all of the feelings that they carry around in them. That doesn't mean anything. Because if you really had true empathy for the borderline, you would realize, oh my God, I am harming this person. This person is addicted to me. I am hurting them. I'm making them worse. I'm trying to make them dependent on me because I want them to love me. That's selfish. That's narcissistic. This person isn't capable of doing that. If I truly cared about this person, I would leave. But that would take a level of, of true empathy and a level of true love and compassion on a completely a level where there was no expectations. And that's, let's be clear, none of you are doing that. None of you listening to me stayed with your borderline out of a truly loving desire to take care of them. You did it because you wanted them to love you. So let's stop bullshitting ourselves. You may have told yourself that. You may have introjected that because that's your job. You were told you had worth based on if you can fix other people. And you were told if you can fix other people, you'll be accepted and loved. So you tell yourself, all I want, I just unconditionally love this person, and all I want to do is make them feel better. And you may have all kinds of feelings which you mistake for empathy. You may cry yourself about how much you care about them. But the truth is that your selfish desires are you want them to love you. The promise of getting them to love you. So let's stop bullshitting ourselves. All right, I don't know where that came from. Somebody asked me a question. Anyway, let's see what else. All right, so as I said, God Emperor, really this channel isn't really for you, my friend. I care about you and I want to help you. This isn't the channel for you. This is a specific channel for BPDs and those who are recovered from them. So if you want to talk to me on the other channel about this, I'll talk to you about it. If you want to have a session with me, I'm happy to help you with it. But that's not really what this channel is about. All right, Jameson Son, question. Why can I look back at some of BPD X's, not ruminate, protect myself with no contact and be okay, then one, I idealize, question seeing them as a child abuse victim deserving love like me? Well, you answered your own question. Is because for whatever reason, they have the ability to get out of you that projection. So that is your projection, like you said. Child abuse victim deserving love like me. So that's your projection. The feelings that you have towards them are the feelings that you have about yourself. And instead of doing that to yourself, loving and nurturing yourself, what you're doing is you're projecting that. And let's be clear, the projection in this case is because it's a way of avoiding your pain. So on an unconscious level, you think if you can fix them, and you know this because you've mentioned this before, you think if you can fix them, then you'll be okay. Which is why when I tell you there's nothing you can do for them, they're broken, you can't fix them, then that creates anxiety in you because you feel if they can't be fixed, then how can I be fixed? So it's all projection. So you answered your own question. It just happens to be that person is able to send out that vibe that you truly see yourself. You see yourself in them. Richard Gurgley, question. A BPD and narcissist become close friends, not intimate. Two girls, how does it play out? Will they stay friends? Is this hypothetical? Why are you asking this question? I'm only interested when you guys let me know your personal feelings, when you show me the vulnerability. I'm not interested in hypothetical questions. Because I want to help you. My goal is to help you. And if you're not telling me something like, whatever it is, why it affects you, then I can help answer that question. But, whenever somebody gives a hypothetical, it tells me that they're diverting, they're hiding something. And the question is really about something else. So I might be answering your question and it's really not going to help you because your issue is something else altogether. So I need to know why you're asking the question before I even look at it. So Liebold 9, if you have a question, write the word questions you see above you. The guy wrote, Richard Gurgley wrote question in all caps. I do that so that I don't miss your question. But you do have a question in there, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer. Sheriff recently called about UPB Dex, I don't know what that is, who recently committed a felony theft. She's in a sugar daddy relationship. Oh God, so much drama. now with plans to marry. What are your thoughts on why she'd do it with regards to BPD? Here are my thoughts. What fucking difference does it make? What does this have to do with you? How does me answering that question about, according to you, a borderline who's in this, sugar daddy relationship and she's not with you, how does that help you? Are you telling me this is your borderline ex? Again, guys, this is codependence in, just flaming codependence. Codependence is all about the other person. They want to talk about the other person all the time and what are they thinking and all that. You haven't told me anything about yourself. And I'm only interested in helping you. I'm not interested in gossiping about some person you know and why they're in some really dramatic sugar. Who gives a shit? She's not with you, so what difference does it make? What do you care? You know what I mean? Ask me about you. Talk about your feelings about who this person is to you and why you're in pain over it or why you're thinking about it. All right? God Emperor, sometimes you ask me questions and I, on my other channel and I know your condition, so I try to give you some slack, but why the fuck would you ask me that question? I'm not going to answer that. Seriously. Bashak Mavios, everybody needs love. What's wrong about wanting the love of a BPD? Because it's not love. Spend some time on the channel. I mean, if you want to go date a borderline, go right ahead. There's no shortage of them out there. Go right ahead. What's wrong with them? I mean, you're going to be in pain. You're going to be miserable. What's wrong with that? I mean, if you're okay with being miserable, go ahead. Get serious about this. Ask me a question about how to recover. I'll be happy to help you. You want to go kill yourself? That's your business. Go right ahead. Plenty of people out there who will give you all the misery that you can tolerate. If you want to call that love, that's your business. I don't think it's love. Okay, Richard Gurgley says it's a real situation. And then he's going to tell us about how codependent he is. All right, let me go back. A BPD narcissist become close friends, not intimate. Two girls. How does it play out? Will they stay friends? It's a real situation, he says, and I am concerned about the BPD. Oh, good for you. So you're a good codependent. The BPD is an adult who can make their own decisions. Who made you responsible for the protection of the BPD, who doesn't seem to be asking for you to butt in and tell them how to live their lives? Because they went to find my old ex. Oh, okay. So you've got two narcissists chasing after each other. The narc from 10 years ago, about why I asked the BPD to distance themselves from me, I have no contact. So these are people you don't have any contact with? I mean, and so are you doing the 4 things? I know for a fact you haven't worked the 12 steps, because if you did, you wouldn't be wasting your time, not to mention mine, asking me about somebody else. Who cares? They're not you. They're adults. They're perfectly capable of making their own misery or making, it's none of your business. And to ask me, how does it play out? Will they stay friends? Who fucking cares? I mean, forgive me for what I'm about to say, but how pathetic for you. You're worried about 2 people who aren't you, who aren't asking for your input. You're not, all of that energy about them, you're not spending on your own life. How to make your life better. How to be happy in your life. And it's because you say you care, but you don't. Codependent obsession is not caring for somebody. It means you want one or both of them back, or you wouldn't be thinking about them. If you were truly healed about both of them, you wouldn't be spending any time thinking about them. You would be off living their life. You would be going, no, I don't know what they're doing. I don't even think about them. Now, they can do whatever they want. I hope they're happy. They're probably not, but it's none of my business. You're asking me about 2 people that you're not connected with, who, to the best of my knowledge, haven't asked for your help. And you're wanting to ask me how it turns out. It's so blatantly obvious to the rest of us that you want them back. You want to dive into that hell and be torn to shreds. Do those 4 things, so you don't have to ask these kinds of questions. Okay, God Emperor, you're a butt hair away of being blocked on this channel. You're not asking questions that are helpful. And the thing is, I don't know if you can see it or not. I feel like you're fucking with me. I feel like you're playing with me. And, I'm kind of on the fence as to how much compassion I want to give you. So I'm going to go ahead and silence you for now. Okay, what else? No contact since September 2020, Richard says. I ask because I put the BPD in harm's way. How did you do that? You're not that powerful. You're such a codependent. You don't have that much power. You put the BPD in harm's way? The BPD is fully capable of making their own decisions. And bear in mind, let me tell you something, but now I'm going to answer your question. The person you should be really worried about is the narcissist, not the borderline. The borderline will feast on the narcissist. The narcissist will abuse the borderline for a while until the borderline finds a way in, and the borderline will feast on the narcissist's entrails. So this is your codependence. And stop bullshitting me with your false compassion and love and concern for them, because you don't have any. It is purely based in your narcissism. You want them back. You selfishly, self-centeredly want them back. And you want to know how it's going to end so that you can swoop in and save one of them. So let's stop bullshitting each other. This is codependence in its enormity. Do the 4 things. Stop screwing around. This is your life. Yeah, Richard, you're doubling down isn't going to change the obvious fact. The fact that you don't see that in yourself, this is why the unconscious mind is the unconscious mind. You're not aware of it. But you're not fooling me. You're fooling yourself. No, it's my fault. I put them in harm's way. I don't want them back. Oh, good God, no. Then why are you thinking about them? Both of them. And why are you pretending to care? Oh my God, I am so powerful that I put them in harm's way because I got rid of the borderline, which means that now the borderline is this victim and the narcissist is going to come along and hurt her. You are so still wrapped up in the borderline. It is so fucking obvious. Do the 4 things. Stop shoving shit in my mouth and telling me it's chocolate ice cream. All right, what else? Nothing else? Okay, so the 4 things, that's what you got to do. And Richard Gergley, you're a perfect example of what happens when you don't do it. You get wrapped up, you get so wrapped up in your narcissistic feelings of grandiosity. It is very grandiose of you to think that, number one, you have the ability to put another adult into harm's way simply because you rejected them. That somehow you're so powerful that because of you, they're going to make their own decisions, that's your fault. I mean, come on, man. Seriously. There's 0 recovery in what I just read there. 0. And you have a target on your head. You're going to tell yourself, I don't want anything to do with these borderlines. No, I'm done. I've gone no contact. If you've gone no contact, then how is it you know what's going on? How is that possible? No contact means you don't have the first clue. If I were to ask you, tell me about your borderline X and your narcissist X, if you had no contact, you go, I have no idea. I have had no contact with them for X amount of time, so I don't even know what's going on with them. So now you're bullshitting me over the fact that you're no contact. If you want to heal, my friend, if you want to heal, you got to do the 4 things. Otherwise, you're going to keep telling yourself all kinds of lies. And you're going to get yourself in, it's just going to matter of time before you get another one. Just going no contact isn't enough. You got to do those 4 things. Going no contact, and even that, you haven't done that. But the BPD trusted me with her life for 9 years. Who the fuck do you think you are? Do you hear the grandiose narcissism in that? This is your codependence. You want to be, this is your projection, by the way. You want somebody to come and take care of you like a parent. You want somebody who will come, scoop you up, and be a parent who you can completely trust, who will take total care of you. Your mommy. You're looking for your mommy. Because you were shamed out of that, and it's too painful for you to look at that and see that in yourself. You're going to project that onto your borderline who trusted you for 9 years. She was so weak and I was so powerful. And then I let her go, and now this person's going to, it's all my fault. You don't see the craziness. It's total lunacy. There's no reality to anything that you're saying. And it's your projection. Underneath that projection is a loneliness and a pain and a desperation of, why won't somebody love me unconditional? It's condescending. It's so condescending. She trusted me like a little helpless infant. She has BPD, but she's an adult. She's perfectly capable of making her own decisions. So, you're better off doing the work before you start throwing this stuff out here on the channel. Talk to me about how you can recover. I'll be happy to help you, and then I won't, I won't malign you and make fun of you. And bear in mind, I'm not doing this out of meanness. I mean, I've got a short amount of time. I'm trying to reflect back on you, the insanity of your thinking, and the selfishness, the destructive selfishness of your thinking. Anyway. Jameson's asking me to wait. I can't actually, because my landlords are showing up to mow the lawn, take my rent, and put it in some new fire alarms in the house, and I have to eat. Okay, so that's it, guys. Thanks a lot. Take care. Do the 4 things. If you want to heal from that relationship, do the 4 things. If you don't do the 4 things, as somebody pointed out earlier, a therapist is not going to have the tools unless they themselves are in it or are aware of it. A therapist by themselves probably isn't going to help you figure out what you need to do to heal. If they don't share with you the 12 steps. Okay, so that's it. I'll see you when I see you. Jameson Son's trying to write a question. Let me see if I can preempt your question, Jameson, just to have your feelings. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Okay, that's it then. All right, guys, I'll see you when I see you. Take care of yourselves. Let's see, where's my end screen? There it is.